there's really levels to surrender. And if you look at your spiritual journey, you may see how there's these levels to surrender. Things that are small are easily surrendered. And you see that perhaps you're able to surrender bigger things, bigger issues in life, things that you're holding on to, surrendering them, surrendering certain circumstances, meeting certain challenges. You may find that you're able to surrender what appears to be bigger than others. Someone might have trouble surrendering maybe a small addiction to coffee, whereas you're able to surrender a 10-year relationship. So there is some sort of levels to surrender. And on the spiritual journey, it is this path of surrender that you're letting go, you're surrendering to life. And if you haven't figured it out already, there's really two options in life: surrender or suffer. This is something that I realized early on in my life, dealing with different issues. Probably the big one when I was younger, dealing with racism, trying to fit in, surrender, fitting in, letting go of this idea of trying to fit in, trying to be like the rest of the friends. So it's just surrendering this. Growing up a little more, teenage years, early adulthood, dealing with an eating disorder for about 4 years. And even that, surrendering that. Surrender, you could say, is this feeling of giving up. And it's something that the ego does not want to do. At all costs, the ego does not want to give up. Whenever you do give up, it, at the time, does feel like a mini death, that you're quitting. You're giving up. And it's ironic because it's actually, when you quit, does it feel like you actually won? It feels totally counterintuitive that you quit to win. Everything is a struggle in life. That you're struggling with racism. You're struggling with your relationship. You're struggling with money problems. You're struggling with your weight. Whatever it is, see how you're actually struggling with these issues in life. So if you're struggling, that must mean that you're fighting. You're fighting against your problem that you're dealing with. So surrender is really when you come to this realization that you're done fighting, that you've had enough fighting. And it's when you put down the sword that you realize that you've actually won the battle. It's very counterintuitive. And like I said, at all costs, the ego does not want to quit. You can see for yourself, if someone were to call you a quitter right now, you would feel extremely triggered, extremely threatened. It would hurt. Look at our society. We're going. The last thing someone wants to be called is a quitter. If you call someone lazy, they get very triggered. If you call someone a quitter, even worse. So there's really these levels of surrender. And as you're on your journey, you feel like you get familiar with surrender, that you're able to surrender more and more. You're able to surrender not knowing what's going to happen. You're able to surrender perhaps money issues, a job, girlfriend, boyfriend, relationships. And this is something that I was able to see. Like I said, surrendering racism, surrendering eating disorder, surrendering just not knowing the next step. That was really early on. You could say even in like high school, going into university, not knowing what's the next step, what's the plan. I've built many different businesses, all that have failed, like six different businesses that have all come to an end. So as you're building them, you build them, and then you surrender this business. You surrender, you let it go, you let it fail, you let it crumble. Surrender is this unconditional acceptance, this unconditional allowance, just totally letting go. I've had 3 businesses at the exact same time, all fold, gone bankrupt, surrendered. So as your capacity to surrender to bigger things in your life more and more, you find that there's actually this trust that is building in you, that you're able to surrender because you have trust. And you have trust because you surrender. It's one and the same. So I just found that going through surrender in a lot of business decisions and a lot of business relationships and stuff like that. Surrendered so much stuff. Surrendered a relationship. Being in a marriage and being in a relationship with someone for such a long time. And dealing with like narcissistic relationships and stuff like that. Surrender. And it just feels like you're being tested. Like you kind of start with the little things. Yeah, little things. And then it's bigger things. It's things that are closer to home. It's things that there's a bigger attachment to. With the businesses, there was a big attachment to the business. It's like your life revolves around it. So that was seen as something bigger, right? Prior to that, it was around like this food and your image of your body and your appearance. So it was the physicality of it. Surrender this image of what the body's going to look like. Surrendering that addiction to eating, surrendering that. Then moving closer, surrendering the business that your life is revolving around, putting food on your table for your family and what you've built, what gives you a sense of meaning in life, surrendering that. Closer to home, 10-year relationship with my wife, and then seeing through the illusion of this and seeing a lot of narcissism. How did I get into this? This is weird. This is, it's like you're just waking up to it. Surrendering that. Surrendering that you're looking for love in your partner. Surrendering that they're the source of your love. Surrendering that. Then it gets to the point where even then that was tested even more. Can you surrender the whole family? Can you surrender the wife, the 3 kids, the family, everything? That was the last everything. And it's as if you've just got used to this surrender. And like I said, it's like the trust is increasing. Your ability to surrender is actually even quicker. Before it's like, you got to deal with the big problems in your life, or like you're struggling with them for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, possibly, right? And then you surrender. Then the next time it's just less struggling. It's less struggling. It's like you get used to it. It becomes the way of life, you could say. It's like you're figuring it out, where any kind of sign of struggle or fighting, it's like, yeah, this feels familiar. And then you let it go, surrender, give up. So then it always seems like it feels like your life is actually moving at a faster pace, because you're not like plateauing in these kind of, struggles. You're not dealing with some battle for years. It's easily let go of. It's easily overcome by surrender. And the feeling of this is actually that you feel more like water. You literally feel like a river flowing over rocks. Before, it used to kind of crash against the rock, and over time, then it's like it realizes that, oh, it's got to be soft, it's got to be flexible, it's moving, going with the flow, and it always feels like gracefully going over obstacles by just simply flowing, by being so soft and flexible and tuning into this intuition, this inner knowing of just trust the flow, so that these kind of rocks in your life that seem like they're barriers and obstacles, you're not smashing against them anymore. At the start, you're definitely smashing against them, but then it's just less splashing and it's more graceful. It doesn't feel like a really strong, powerful whitewater rapid river, but instead it feels more like a stream, and you're able to then flow and trickle over these obstacles more gracefully. It feels more like you're going through life and you're becoming less affected by the circumstances of life. You're less touched. You're able to flow through situations that you can see around you would most likely wreck someone, that it would just, debilitate someone, where you're able to just flow in and out of these relationships, in and out of businesses, in and out of certain situations, circumstances, financial circumstances. You're just able to kind of go through this. And as you're maneuvering, as you're flowing, you're also picking up kind of a lot of, what we can call it, you're getting wiser. You're able to see how things are impermanent, how this is just a phase. If you're experiencing kind of this low phase in your life, then you're able to kind of see through that and say, I've already dealt with something like this before. It lasted whatever it is, 6 months, it lasted a year, it lasted 2 years, whatever it is, it's just a period of time. This too will pass. This is impermanent. It's only temporary. And so that your ability to be more patient in that phase and just kind of ride it out is just go with the flow. Perhaps you're not able to make a lot of money, or you're maybe dealing with some sort of health issue, or it's a time where maybe you just got out of a relationship and now you've got some alone time. So it's kind of like this feeling of you make the most of that and look to optimize that situation. It's like you lean into it more. You stop struggling. It's not like you're, out there searching for a girlfriend or a boyfriend, trying to get back on your feet. No, it's like, okay, life took this person away from you. So then it's like, now it's time for some more alone time. So then there's a deeper connection with yourself like that. Or if you had some busy life and there was like, like I said, like 3 businesses going on at a time, and it's like kind of like, life is saying that's too much on your plate. You're too unfocused and you're scattered. So then you look at it as, okay, well, let's just refine, let's simplify. So things kind of get cleared out for a reason, and allow, again, a greater and greater connection. It's this feeling where things are coming into your life, things are falling away, and when they fall away, you are not trying to hold on to them. Your ability to simply let go becomes faster. It's like you're more of a habit of when you feel like things are heavy, when you feel like things are about to fall, you let it fall. Whereas the opposite is, without that experience of surrender, you're always trying to hold on. You're fighting to hold on. You're struggling to hold on. This is where the struggle, the fighting, you're holding on to something. As you move throughout the journey of surrender, you have this feeling where you're loosely holding on to things. You're loosely holding on to things. You move a little further on in the journey with more experience, and then you're actually not holding on to things. You're actually unattached. You're unattached to things. And you've realized that actually not being attached to things is when you can actually enjoy them. You actually couldn't enjoy. You can't enjoy anything that you're attached to. There's this feeling like you can't actually enjoy it. Why? Because you're afraid of letting go. You're afraid of losing it. Once you feel like you're actually not holding on to, there's nothing to lose. There's no fear of losing it. And the feeling is that you actually have even more appreciation for it. You're not split where you can't really appreciate it because you're always afraid of losing it. How can you appreciate something when you're constantly worrying about losing it? How can you appreciate something when you're actually worried about controlling it and preserving it, sustaining it? So this feeling of hands off, the experience is brought to your door, hands off, you can enjoy it fully, knowing very well that it's only temporary. And when that temporary experience is no more, then it's no more. And it's like you can part with it. You can let it go effortlessly, knowing that there's going to be another temporary experience to enjoy fully. So you're able to have this greater capacity to simply let things come as they will, let things go as they will. And that is just a truth of life, that's just how things are. We come from this place of wanting to preserve something and make it permanent. And this causes a great deal of stress and struggle and fighting. We're fighting to keep things the same. We're fighting to hold on to things. With this path of surrender, you're not doing that anymore. You're doing that less and less. You find that you're able to let go of things much easier. You find that you're not actually holding on to too much because so much has been surrendered. You've let go of so much stuff. You're actually holding on to very little, which then near the end of the journey, you could say, if we want to say that there's an end, is that you are only left with the big things. The big things, like I said, like the stuff that feels close to home, the stuff that you're actually overlooking. And these big things create a very strong sense of identity. This is what I was saying, is like the business, the wife and the family. And if that's let go of, what are you? You're literally nothing. You are literally nothing. If you let go of these big things in your life, which are scary for most people to think about. And that's kind of like the test. And that's actually a good way to confront these things, to create this experience of surrendering these things more gracefully. Instead of waiting until they're literally stripped from you, can you reflect? Can you introspect at what is creating that? What's your life all about? What's your life all about? Are you a mother and devoted to your 3 kids or your 2 kids? What are you without your kids? Right? So if we can introspect on this, it's again looking at this in a more graceful way, and it can be surrendered that way. It can be surrendered that way. if there isn't that introspection and there's still this holding on, then, like I said, life can say, hey, I want that back, take it away from you. And then you really see, what are you without all of that? So you're able to find this more and more grace as you're doing this, that you're not actually needing things to totally fall away. If you can look at it, introspect, I guess we can say like contemplate it, then you can actually bring up these things that are very subconscious. You can bring up the experience mentally without actually experiencing it, you could say, physically. You can look at things and see the attachment and detach from it mentally, because really the attachment is a mental attachment, right? So you can see I didn't lose my wife, I didn't lose my 3 kids, but I was able to contemplate those attachments and surrender them and let go, right? It didn't need that experience of, I don't know, a car accident or something like that, or some tornado, like, destroying the whole family. It didn't take that, but it was simply looking at that ability to see clearly. And it's kind of like, again, a result of this surrender is there's less and less distractions. When there's less and less distractions, then you're able to see more clearly. And when there's less and less things that you're holding on to, it's really easy to see the 2 big things that you're holding on to. What am I really holding on to? Could be your partner, could be your kids, could be your body, right? So if you're able to contemplate this, then you don't need to experience a health crisis that totally starts destroying your body. You don't need to experience, let's say, cancer that just takes over, and that you have to then, you're given the opportunity to surrender the body. You're more than the body, right? But if you're fighting, and you can see, look at our society, how we fight for everything. We fight cancer, we fight for peace, we fight for hunger, we fight for everything. We fight for everything, right? We don't even really like hearing the word surrender. It's this word that you won't touch, right? But you could say that even if you didn't know what that word was, surrender, you can experience this empathy and surrender. I had this feeling of letting go, and I had a feeling of acceptance. But you could say like surrender is unconditional let go, unconditional acceptance, right? So to unconditionally let go of everything, that's the ultimate surrender. And we can say maybe at the end is that just happens on its own. Like I said, is sometimes just this contemplation where it feels like things are just naturally coming up, being shown to you, like all this unconscious stuff starts coming up, surfacing to be shown to you. Maybe it's just effortless, and it happens like that, because surrender is the opposite of effort. It's like you can't effort surrender. It's like an oxymoron. You can't try to surrender. That's what makes it very difficult, I would say impossible, for the mind to understand, because actually in those states of, it's not states, but in those times of surrender, you're not thinking. It's not a doing. It's not something that you're trying to do. It's not something that you're forcing to do. It's a lot like falling asleep. Falling asleep, you can't try and fall asleep. The more you try and fall asleep, the less likely you are to fall asleep. So you're letting go of the mind. You're letting go of the body. Essentially, you surrender every night to fall asleep. You're letting go. You're letting go. It's this relaxation, this letting go. So in those circumstances, it's simply acknowledging that tension, that resistance, that fighting, that struggle. And then it's just relaxing, 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 letting go, letting go, letting go. And that's why it's a non-doing. It's a non-doing. And that then is just, let's say, sort of remembered. It's not really a great word to use, but it doesn't feel like a skill, but it feels like just something that you've already done before. The next experience comes, relax, let go. Next experience comes, whatever it is, car accident, you demo your car or whatever, let go of the car, right? And then this just becomes, like I said, it feels more like a way of life, that you're able to relax into situations and relax out of situations. Which then creates this feeling of expansion and flowy and soft and flexible. And you're able to just simply navigate life like this effortlessly. And you realize that it's a lot like being in a lazy river, where you're not actually trying to get anywhere. You're just letting life bring you to different places, bring you to different experiences. You're not doing anything. It's more like you're being done. Everything is simply just an experience to experience temporarily, as if you're going down a lazy river. You're not fighting, you're not resisting, you're not screaming that you're going to go under a waterfall. Maybe you don't like water, the cold water being poured on your head, and you're dry in this lazy river on your hair. You're not panicking that there's the lazy river. It's just what would maybe be seen as a negative experience, but it's inevitable. It's happening. It's like you can see it unfolding. So you're not resisting. It's just you're relaxing. And it's actually in that relaxation, this might not sound possible, that you're actually able to enjoy the negative experiences. It's really hard for the mind to understand, where you can relax into this. A family member can pass away, and with no resistance, it's like you can easily experience the funeral. You can easily be around other family members that are mourning. You're not panicking, you're not resisting, you're not fighting it. It's just this deep acceptance. And that's what I said, is like every experience, it's like a little more like a mini death, where a part of you always feels like it's dying. A part of you always feels like it's just like dissolving. It's this path of just melting, or dissolving, as if, like I said, with this metaphor, is like it's a lazy river, but let's say you're in the lazy river, but you're made out of salt. Your whole body is made out of salt, and you're in this lazy river. And as you're flowing in this lazy river, you're very solid to start off with on this journey. You're very dense. You're this big salt. Your big body is made out of salt, and it's very dense. But as you're flowing in the river, you're also noticing that you're dissolving. There's less of you that's actually there. You're less rigid. You're less solid. So you're now not even feeling like there's you and the river. And at some point, it's totally, you're like, not you. You're totally gone. It's just the river. You feel, as more and more of you dissolve, you feel more transparent, that life is just moving through you, and there's really less of you, and there's no part of you that's really getting in the way. And it's like you're able to, instead of remember I said remember was a bad word, you're able to reflect back that it's like, oh, you're just able to just let go. You're just dissolving more. This experience, let me just dissolve. There's also this feeling of, let me embrace this experience. Let me absorb it. So there's this feeling of, before, early on in the journey, you're meeting things head on. It's like, people say this pretty accurately. You're butting heads. When you butt heads with someone, so you feel very rigid. You feel very solid. Whereas after this, you don't feel rigid. You feel flexible, right? I shouldn't say after this, but throughout this journey, you don't feel so solid. You feel more flexible. You feel more malleable. You're able to mold and bend, right, to the needs of situations, to the circumstances of life. It's not really like you have your agenda going into situations. It's more of, here's the situation, and it's like, what are the needs of the situation? And then it's almost feeling like almost like a chameleon, like you're just changing according to those situations. You're not so rigid. You're not coming at it and saying, here's my preferences, here's my here's all the stuff that I want. You come into the situation, situations are being seen. It's more of, okay, well, how can I be of service in this situation? It's more of like you're being used in the situation instead of you coming in and saying, what can I get out of this? What do I not like about this? How do I need to change this? It's more of you're just part of the situation. You're not separate from it. You're actually part of the whole situation. And each situation is experience more and more like that, more and more like that. So you have this feeling that you're less rigid, less dense, less solid. You're starting to feel more and more flexible, more and more malleable, more dispersed, like as if you're salt and you're just dispersed in the water. So you feel more like thinned out, transparent, and you're not meeting these experiences head on anymore. You feel like you're just as if you're flowing over them gracefully, flowing around them gracefully. Now, maybe I should point there that you're not trying to avoid them. When I say you're going around, you only know that you went around it because of like looking hindsight. You're not actually trying to sidestep situations. That's very important that I mention that. You're not trying to get out of situations. You're just seeing that you kind of went, in and around rocks, or you went over rocks, but you have this feeling of totally embracing the situation, absorbing it from all angles, up and down, side to side. Whereas before it was just head on. It's like hitting your head against the wall. And then you kind of wake up and say, my way is not working. This is not changing the situation. Hitting the head against the wall is doing nothing. The only thing that it's actually accomplishing is a headache. You're hurting your head. So then it's kind of like, that way is not it. That way is not it. That's why I said it comes down to literally this one choice in life is suffer or surrender. And it's just one of the ways that life uses suffering to awaken, essentially. It's one of those ways where you feels like you're becoming more intelligent, but there's actually a shift where you realize that it's like the intelligence that's flowing through you, that you're trusting. That's where the trust comes in. You're trusting something beyond yourself. You're trusting more of this natural intelligence. You're just trusting that things are going to, I wouldn't say work out, because it's not a matter of like hope. You're not like hoping. You're not like, oh, I hope that things work out. You're not, because that would then be focusing on the future. Hope is about the future. When you're flowing, there is no past and there is no future. When I say reflection, I'm not saying reflection. That's why I didn't like the word remember. You're not remembering the past. You're not saying, oh, remembering that last experience where I did this, this, and this, and you now have a strategy for how to take on this next. You're not doing that. Like I said, it's more of this wisdom that you've just experienced it, and it's like it's accumulated, that this wisdom is now being able to guide and direct in this situation. It's just the experience where it's as if it's becoming more and more intelligent. But really what's happening is you've actually just let go of more and more control. And as you let go of more and more control, this intelligence appears to just start taking over. It's more of you've let go of the wheel and then something else takes over. And when you're afraid of when you're afraid of letting go of the wheel, it's almost like you start realizing that, well, hey, it's actually been steering the whole time. It's just allowing you to pretend to take the wheel, right? The same way as like this is kind of like, not, what's the word here? Not encouraged, but to give you the picture, it's kind of like you have a 5-year-old son you're the dad, and your 5-year-old son wants to pretend to drive the car. So you sit him on your lap, you're in the car, you're just in a parking lot or somewhere in a country road. There's no one near you. And you're making him feel like he's driving, but you're holding the wheel down here. His hands are on the top. He can only see his hands, and you're holding the wheel, and you're driving the car like this. But the whole time he totally feels like he's driving. It feels a lot like that. It feels a lot like that, to the point where then you realize that you're not driving and you let go, right? Once you start at the start, you're flowing. You're trying to swim up the river against the current, against the rapids and the flow. And then you start realizing that that's not the way. That's not the way. You get exhausted trying to swim in the wrong direction. So then you basically stop swimming. It's that quitting. You quit. You just float. You let go of trying to go in that direction and you float. And it's not like you try and put all this effort in the other direction, because you start realizing, like, what's the point? Why effort in that direction? The river's already taking me in that direction. So why try and swim faster? Where do I need to get to? Why am I such in a hurry? Be like looking at someone in a lazy river and they're like really, efforting. You're there, hands up behind your head. You got your pina colada, and you're seeing someone like, they're on their tube and they're kicking, trying to go. And you kind of look like, just chill out, man. We're all going to get there at the same we're all going to get to the destination. Like you're totally not enjoying the lazy river, right? You're looking a little crazy here because we're all relaxing, and you're making a lot of splashing here, creating a lot of commotion, and you're stressing out, right? So it kind of feels like that. The only flip side is, imagine this lazy river full of everyone that's kicking, holding a tube and kicking and trying to get somewhere. And you're the only one that's got your hands behind your head, sipping your pina colada, relaxing. So the experience is that you're just enjoying the lazy river of life, and other people are trying to get somewhere. And you're realizing that it's when you're trying to get somewhere that you can't enjoy the lazy river. There's too much effort. It's the efforting. So then you just relax. It's about relaxing. And when you're relaxed, then you're just going with the flow. And you've surrendered your plan of where you should go. You're surrendering your expectations of the experiences that you should experience. It's more of a, let's just see what's up next at the next bend. You don't know. There's a waterfall. I got my hair wet. The next, someone's shooting you with the jets. Another one, they're serving you drinks. Another one, it's got this, whatever it is, a beautiful display. The scenery is nice, right? So it's a bunch of different experiences on this lazy river, and you're just enjoying them one at a time. You're not straining your neck trying to see what's next. If you're going in this lazy river, sometimes the tube is spun and you don't know what's coming up because you're actually looking backwards, right? So you're not trying to turn your neck, figure out what's going to happen next. You're just enjoying it as it's coming, right? So there's this level of surrender, this feeling of a greater capacity to let go, greater capacity to accept, greater capacity to trust. And it's really this process of dissolving, dissolution. You're dissolving this sense of me. And when there's less of you, then you could say, I don't know, there's more of life, until you completely dissolve and you realize that there is just life. There's only been life. It is life. Everything is life. And you are that. Hopefully this helps. I'll see you in the next one.